When it comes to Father's Day, some things never change. Dads want steak. In fact, 75% of Americans say there's no better way to celebrate than grilling with the family. That's why I'm giving my dad Omaha Steaks, the original butcher, trusted since 1917. Their steaks are aged for tenderness, hand-cut by master butchers, and full of rich, beefy flavor. I recently tried their filet mignon in all-new smash burgers. Incredible quality and so easy to prepare. Whether it's beef, burgers, chicken, or seafood, every bite is backed by their 100% money-back guarantee. This Father's Day, give Dad the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for guaranteed perfect gifts that deliver legendary quality. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code FLAVOR at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code FLAVOR at checkout. See site for details.
Like to waltz with the log driver, for he goes burning down and down white water. That's where the log driver learns to step lightly. It's burning down and down white water. A log driver's waltz pleases girls completely.
Welcome to episode 238 of the Wilderness Podcast. I am Dills. Had to play a little bit of Canadian heritage at the beginning of the episode. It is Canada's Day this long weekend, but on top of that, I felt like it links so well to what we're going to talk about today. We had it was one of the big announcements at the last summit. Was it the Winter Summit? I think it was the Winter Summit. We had Forestry release, which was like this it kind of reworked woodcutting. It made it a more social experience, which is, that's kind of a big deal. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about forestry today and skilling in general. Last episode, we spent most of the time talking about bounty hunter and PvP. But one thing I mentioned was that there was kind of these three pillars. That's how I always saw it. I always saw old school RuneScape as having three things that made old school RuneScape so unique compared to other MMORPGs out there, right? You got skilling, PvP, and PvM. And it's kind of like a triangle because they all link together in a way. And I think that's what makes RuneScape so unique. Like it makes RuneScape this sandbox game that we know. And I think it's why old school RuneScape has been able to really stand the test of time. This game's been going strong for 20 years at this point, and it still blows my mind that people still play this game. Like, I understand why people play this game. I love this game. I mean, if you're listening, you probably love this game too, and you probably understand why people play this game. That being said, as much as I love this game, I have never recommended it to any of my friends. And it's because it's like this weird game. The graphics kind of look like shit, even though, we love the graphics, we know the charms, but we know the charm of it. But I also realize that if this is the first thing I see when it comes to RuneScape, like the graphics on Tutorial Island or something, it's like, the graphics don't look good. It looks like from PlayStation 1 era, maybe. It doesn't have the charm that pixel graphics do of Stardew Valley. At least I don't. I've grown to love it, but the graphics have never been a selling point of this game. The way RuneScape runs, it's all point and click. You use your mouse, you click. That's everything you do is with your mouse for the most part. Again, it's not the most engaging when you're up against games like World of Warcraft, where you have your whole keyboard that allows you to do different attacks and to move around. And you use your mouse as well, but it is also with your keyboard. So it's a little bit more engaging in that sense. And then the other thing that kind of goes against RuneScape is that, if you're vaguely familiar of it, you know that there's a huge grind involved when it comes to this game, which means doing the same tasks over and over and over again. So that's not fun for everyone. I recognize that's not a game that everyone's going to like. As a matter of fact, most people probably aren't going to like it. But because of those 3 pillars, I feel at the beginning, the people who do love RuneScape, like those 3, skilling, PvP, and PvM cause this game to like really pull people in. And I think skilling is actually one of the biggest reasons for that. Like when I first started this game, the fact that I could, if I see a tree, I could click the tree and I could chop it down. And then I get wood from it. And with that wood, I could set it on fire. And then on that like fire, you can cook things on it. And with that food, you can now eat it and it heals you. It becomes this like link, all these like things. It causes this chain where one skill leads to the next. And I mean, usually all roads point back to PVM, it feels like. But still, like you have this road you go down with skilling, right? Of course, you don't have to just make a fire with those logs. You could turn it into like a bow or arrows. You could use there's a lot you can do, and not many other MMORPGs gave you that freedom. You couldn't just cut down a tree if you saw it. So that right away kind of made RuneScape this sandboxy game that we know, because it felt like you could do anything you wanted. You're dropped in this world. You have an axe, a pickaxe, maybe a tinderbox, some gold. And then it's like, okay, go figure it out. Go do whatever you want. But I feel like skilling's had this identity crisis over the years. We've seen so many things evolve in this game, and skilling has evolved sort of, but not really. Back in the day, I feel like a huge motivator for this game was PvP. PvP was like really popular at the time, but it was like the most hardcore thing you could do in this game. It took the most amount of skill. PVM wasn't even really there, because for a long while, the only bosses we really had were like KBD and the Calphite Queen. And there's not really too many mechanics behind those bosses. It's just like attack it and hope those bosses don't hit you hard. That's pretty much it, right? But as time went on, we did see PVM begin to grow and evolve into this really high intensity, this high skill ceiling activity, right? We have these raids now. We have these bosses that are extremely hard. We have these challenges like the Inferno, which take immense amount of skill to be able to complete. And it becomes this thing that like this is what everyone is striving to do. A lot of people play this game and eventually they hit this point where they're like, I want to dive into the end game content. When we talk about the end game content, we're not talking about skilling. Nobody ever says I want to do end game content and they're talking about doing whatever skilling activity. It's usually PVM. Sometimes it's PvP as well, but usually it's PVM. But it's because we've seen this like path of growth when it comes to what PVM is. It started with the Calphite Queen, and then eventually we brought out like the Dagannoth King. So it's like, okay, now we're fighting 3 different bosses. We have to make these choices now. We can't just, it's not just one boss we have to kill. We have to decide, prioritize, what boss am I going to kill? And then from there, we saw like the God Wars, where they had some unique mechanics involved, but still kind of basic, right? If you and a bunch of friends go kill General Graridor, the Bandos boss, it's not that tough. There's not a whole lot of mechanics going on there, but you have things like the Zamorak boss, which is going to smite you. It's going to do an attack that's going to drain your prayer. So you're starting to see a little bit more mechanics involved. And then, there's this gap that happened where what we know as old school RuneScape basically paused, and RuneScape 3 started happening. So all of this development happened and it became RuneScape 3, and then old school RuneScape comes back. But a lot was learned. A lot had changed when it comes to MMOs and PVM in that gap between RuneScape 2 and old school RuneScape, right? There's like 5 years in between of what happened. And in that time, PVM changed. PVM wasn't just this pray ranged and kill whatever boss it is and hope it doesn't hit you hard and eat when you're low. It started becoming like, there's these mechanics you actually need to know about, and you need to do more than just eat food. You need to dodge things. You might need to change attack styles. You might need to change your prayers. But then you look at skilling hasn't had that treatment. It hasn't had that level of growth. I mean, okay, some of you might argue that it kind of has. Like things did develop where it's like 2-tick fishing or 3-tick mining. Anyone who knows this stuff is probably like, hey, you're messing up all the tick cycles. I don't really do that sort of stuff, but there's all this like tick manipulation that did start to happen where people figured out how to get increased experience rates. But it, again, I don't know. It didn't feel like it was this. People are figuring out new training techniques, but skilling, like what skilling wasn't changing. It still was pretty basic, right? It was still like, you click something and then wait for your resources to gather, or you click 2 things and wait for yourself to create this item. Maybe it's a potion. Maybe it's maybe you're smithing and making dart tips or plate bodies or whatever it is. But in a lot of ways, I feel like skilling was getting kind of left behind when PVM was growing, right? PvP has always been its own beast. It's very much player driven. PvP is as challenging as the person you're fighting is. So as people just got better, the skill gap increased, the skill ceiling increased. The things you would need to learn to be able to hold your own, that became more and more tools you needed to know what to do with. So PVM has been growing. Skilling hasn't really been growing. Things were getting added, but nothing about it changed. But in old school RuneScape, they really figured like, you have to give some love to skilling because not everybody wants to PVM. And that's, again, part of the beauty of this game. Not everybody wants to kill monsters or do raids. Some people just loved the idea of skilling and they just wanted to continue skilling. Skilling was nice because it was kind of relaxing for the most part. You didn't have to worry about dying or the stress of like doing really hard content. A lot of this really hard content sometimes involves other players as well. And it can be kind of stressful when you're doing hard, there's this pressure to kind of perform well, right? You don't want to mess up and kind of let your team down. So skilling wasn't really like that. But wait, but skilling's kind of started to change a little bit. You started to see a lot of things where it was a new training method for whatever skill, but you weren't just training one skill, you're training like 2 skills at the same time, right? Something like aerial fishing, where you're training cooking, fishing, and hunter all at the same time. But really, the activities weren't really changing. They kind of were just getting reskinned. They're like slightly being changed, but then I think they started wanting to shift to like, let's look at what PVM is doing well and how can we bring that into skilling. So you started seeing things like Winter Todd, where it's like this dangerous mini game, but it allowed you to train fire making and then, of course, construction and fletching and wood cutting a little bit as well. But if you fucked up, you could die. There was potential to die. And you could also just fail the minigame as well. So there was that side of it too. But you started seeing these like minigames pop up and they were kind of like these skilling bosses, right? And this is a trend that continued, that still continues, right? We got Hollowed Sepulchre, which is like, you could argue that that's end-game content because it's pretty tough. It is really hard to do when it's an agility course that you need to actually dodge stuff. You don't just click and let your character do it. You need to actually be good. It's quite difficult to do. And then you have things like Temperos, which is like Winter Todd, but for fishing. And then you have Guardians of the Rift, which is this mini game for rune crafting. And then you have Zolcano, which is basically a boss you kill with skilling. But they kind of made a bunch of these mini games and they gave it the PVM treatment where they're just like, let's make skilling into PVM. And while a lot of that stuff is kind of fun, it's like this weird thing where you're like, is skilling going to become this activity where you now just train it in these mini games? Because, I mentioned it like 10 minutes ago. One of the unique parts of RuneScape, it's a sandbox game. You can cut down that tree or you can kill that cow. It's going to drop hides. You can turn that hide into armor. All that stuff is really cool. But if the way to train your skills is in mini games like Winter Todd or Temperos or Guardians of the Rift, it's kind of what like all other MMORPGs do, right? There's always like these 2 categories of MMOs. It's sandbox or theme park. I watch a lot of MMORPG YouTube channels because I'm a huge MMO fan. I've played a ton over the years. I don't anymore. I'm just stuck at RuneScape, but I like to pay attention to see what's new and what's coming out. And it's always broken up into these two categories. Sandbox, do whatever you want, create your own goals. You have the freedom to really do anything you want. Theme park is like you're dropped in a theme park and you have all of these activities that you get to choose from and you get rewards from. So it's kind of like what PVM is, where you have all these bosses to choose from and you get these items from it and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so skilling was like starting to like morph. Our skilling started to somewhat morph into this like theme park vibe where you're like, okay, we have a bunch of these mini games now scattered about. But is this like the way we want skilling to be? Do we want every single meta of training your skills to be stuck in these different mini games and activities that are basically pulled away from the world? You know, prior to this week, spoilers, you know, if you go to Sears Village, how many people are you going to see wood cutting? Not much at all, especially compared to how it was back in the day. And it's kind of weird because, you know, all these people, you know, you used to see all these people lighting fires in different cities, in Draenor, Varrock, Falador. They all had, maybe not Falador, but they all had these fires were set everywhere because somebody was training fire making. But that all disappeared when Wintertod came, right? Used to have all these people training rune crafting in the Abyss. You had people training rune crafting at the ZMI altar. You had people just running to the altars like you did prior to all those methods. And then Guardians of the Rift comes out. A lot of people start shifting over there. It's weird when you go to the fishing guild and you're the only one there. That's what happens. If you go to the fishing guild, you're going to be the only one there. There might be somebody else, but nobody's there anymore because they're all somewhere else. Maybe they're at Temperos, or maybe they're at, I don't know, Minnows, perhaps. So these activities came out, which just pulled all these players away, which is fine though, because at the same time, clicking on a tree and just chopping down the tree wasn't very fun. Any way to speed up that process was kind of welcomed. Back in 2017, Mod Aiza, beloved JMod on the RuneScape team, he joined as a new JMod, and on any JMod's first stream, well, at the time at least, it was such a small team. So if you were new to the team, you jumped on a live stream and they would say like, oh, if you could change one thing about old school RuneScape, what would it be? They'd ask them some question to see what they would say. And so Mod Aiza in 2017 joined, and they asked him something along the lines of, what do you want to change, or what do you want to add to old school RuneScape? And he made a somewhat controversial comment that the community did not take very well. I'm going to have to paraphrase it a little bit because I was looking for such a long time today, trying to find the clip, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find it on YouTube. I couldn't find it on the Wayback Machine. It's not on Twitch anymore. Anything on Reddit, the actual video of it was deleted. So I could only find one Reddit comment that was somebody saying this. Guys, remember how the old school RuneScape community can be pretty toxic at times. You know what? It has gotten so much better over the years, I will say. Okay. But we're going back 6 years ago to when old school RuneScape, the community was not the nicest. Okay. There was a post on the front page of Reddit that said, petition to get the new community manager, Mod Aiza, fired. And this player says, are you just going to sit there like a beta? That's how you know it's going to be good. You know this guy's going to have strong arguments when that's the first sentence. Are you just going to sit there like a beta and let people with his beliefs get the game completely destroyed? If even 10% of his ideas and opinions and values of the game are implemented into actual factual things inside the game, this game will be ruined in 3 years tops. Imagine you like first week on the job and you go on the live stream and then some like people are on like Reddit being like, you need to be fired right now. And they're like voting on it. There's so much power the community thought they had. It was like, we get to vote on what updates come into the game. We can also vote on what JMods work here. And we're voting for this one to get fired. Imagine that. Mod Aiza. If you don't know, Mod Aiza is an absolute gem of the old school RuneScape team. And he's been going strong for a while. And you know what? It's the community completely shifted. All right, but what was his comment? Where are people freaking out about? So his comment, the way I think he said it, came off much worse than what he meant. But he basically said something along the lines of when it comes to skilling, he wants players to have the ability to put more effort into something and get more out of it, right? He wanted to see experience rates or rewards increase if a player was just better at skilling. Now, the way he worded it, I wish I could find the clip, but he worded it. I remember watching this too and thinking like, I think I got, if I remember correctly, I think I understood what he meant, but I also knew that like others weren't going to get it. And even the JMods felt the same way. You would see Mod Wolf, another one who unfortunately dealt with a lot of toxicity from the community and was a great JMod when he worked there. You could see him like hiding his face with a sheet of paper or something. And a few other JMods were like kind of like they had a face of like, oh boy, stay off Reddit for a few days. But what he meant was like, similar to PVMing. If you're really good at PVMing, for most bosses, there's so many tiers of how good you can be at a boss, right? You can have like good gear and all that stuff, but I'm not talking about that. There's things like with raiding where there's the boss mechanics you can get really good at, that sort of stuff. But then there's a lot of things that you can do as a player that will make that fight even easier, and you'll do more damage and you'll kill the boss way faster, right? I've been doing a lot of Tombs of a Mascot lately. You know, I might be running with a few people who are really good at Toa at the raid. And, you know, there's a boss that you can set it. There's two bosses actually that you can do this with, where there are methods that you can do so that nobody in the party takes any damage and that boss does not do any special attacks. So instead of having to avoid things and eat food and maybe change your prayers, you can just sit there and click and just let the damage fly. And it makes the fight so much easier and it makes the fight so much faster, right? So because somebody knows the technique on how to do that, they are rewarded, and they're actually rewarding the rest of the party as well. You are being rewarded for your efforts. You're making the fight easier and faster. Which for something like Tombs of a Mascot means you can crank up the difficulty and make the fights harder now because you know how to mitigate some of this level of difficulty, and you can get more money in the end, right? The rewards are more frequent. So you are directly being rewarded for the effort you're putting into this PVM content. And that's what he meant when it came to skilling. You should be able to be a better skiller and do certain things. And in return, you will get a bunch of experience maybe, or maybe it's going to be rewards, whatever it is. But players saw it as Aiza wants to increase the rate at which experience is gained. He wants to make skilling faster. And if you're better at skilling, you should be able to power level through some of your skills. And people took that the wrong way. And people have always been like that. Don't change my skilling. You know, they're kind of like boomers in old school RuneScape. They don't want to see their skills changed. They want it to stay the same. They want 2-tick mining to be the best way to train mining. They never want to see any other ways for you to be rewarded for it. So Mod Aiza got a lot of hate from that comment when he first joined the team. This is why I could never work at Jagex. I could not handle. If I saw that Reddit post, I'd be resigned. I'd be going to my boss and be like, I gotta quit. They voted me out, you know? So anyways, on that specific Reddit post, Mod Aiza did actually come out and kind of give a more in-depth explanation to his answer. Basically what he was saying was, he doesn't want to see the skilling process devalued. He just wants to see the skill ceiling of a skiller kind of be able to increase. And we see this with, you know, things like Hollowed Sepulchre, right? it's the best experience methods when it comes to agility, but you can't just go into the hollowed sepulcher and start cranking out the best experience and getting the most amount of money when it comes to training agility. You need to actually learn how to do it. You need to get good at hollowed sepulcher. And when you are good at it, then you'll be rewarded. So that's kind of what he was mentioning, wanting to see. So my main point was like, I think JMods recognize that skilling is being kind of left behind. A lot of people don't enjoy skilling, right? I said it before, but PVM becomes like the end game that people work towards. And skilling is just something you have to do along the way. Oh, if you want to do Chambers of Xeric, you need 90 herblore so that you can make overloads. If you didn't need 90 herblore, then you'd probably be like, great, I'm not going to train herblore. What's the point? I don't need to. So they kind of become requirements because Jagex just made it that way. So skilling is almost like these obstacles that get in the way of PVMing. And I think they recognize that that's not great. That's not really kind of a problem. Now, to tie it back, having these sectioned off mini games is also not the best way to do it, because then you lose, the RuneScape world loses its life, right? How awesome was it to walk through Sears? You know, back in the day, I do this all the time. Someone mentioned it after last week's episode. They're like, this podcast sometimes runs on nostalgia, doesn't it? Yeah, it does, I think. But back in the day, you'd go to Sears Village and it was like a hub for trading. How many bank sales were there happening at the Sears Village Bank? And part of that, I believe, was because it was also a hub for skilling. You had some of the best wood cutting methods there. You had some of the best fishing methods, right? To the east, you had Catherbury. Catherbury, is that Catherby? I'm gonna. I don't have the. To the east, you had Catherby, which was like, you know, that's a fishing hub, and it's just like a 1 minute walk away from Sears. Sears was a little bit bigger though. And then to the west, you also had another fishing hub with the Fishing Guild, right? So in a way, like Sears Village was like right in the middle, and it became this hub, and you had all these trees nearby. You had a shit ton of yews, you had maple trees, and you had magic trees. Those were really hard to find in the rest of the world. It became this hub and a lot of and then of course to the north you had Relica, right? So I don't know what was going on there, but it existed, and some people went there, I guess. But because it was like the skilling hub, you'd walk past it and it was full of life. And then you go to Sears Village now and it's like dead because nobody's really at maple trees. Some might be. Nobody's really at the magic trees, you know. Nobody's at the yew trees because they're probably at the woodcutting guild. And they're all in that one spot. So it was like this balance of like, how do you make skilling more fun, more engaging, raise the difficulty, the skill ceiling on it, but how do you maintain like what it used to be, where people were engaging with the world around them with these skills instead of just like being stuck in one spot. You know, back in the day, the podcast does run on nostalgia. When I first started playing, it was always this. It felt like, at least within my like friend group, it was a bit of a faux pas to not skill, basically. If one of your combat skills was one of your highest skill levels, it was kind of seen as like, oh, like it's a little gatekeepy. You're just like, oh, you're not a true RuneScaper. All you do is combat. You're not a true scaper. Look at your skills. They suck. For me, it was always like super important that a different skill was my highest stat. And of course, I chose woodcutting. I don't know why, but woodcutting became the thing that I did. And I had a friend who was who did a lot of fishing. So for me, it was like, hey, you're doing fishing. I had another friend who did mining. I'm going to do wood cutting. It probably would have been more fun if we all did one of those together and we could just hang out. But no, we had to be different, right? That's kind of how it is back when you're a kid. And so I would always wood cut, and I would always be at Sears Village, and there was I'd be at the magic trees, and you would have a section with 3 trees and a section with 4 trees. And I would be in the same world after school every single day from like 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock every night, 5 hours a day, just wood cutting magics all day long. It was like, when you look back on it, you're like, wow, that's kind of lame, but I loved it. I had so much fun doing it. And you would stick to the same world. World 18 is what I always did. It was a Canadian world. So I'd always do World 18 and you would see the same people at the 3 magic trees in World 18. And it became this like hub. It was a hub of people hanging out. It was like, it's kind of like, it was like what a clan chat or a friends chat is today. Just a bunch of these individuals in one spot where we would chat and you would get to know each other. And then it became like, I would just go to the magic trees because I wanted to hang out with some people online, and that's where we did it. Anyways, those were like the golden days of skilling. A lot has changed. And one thing I never even touched on as well is that skilling used to be the best money-making method. Not the best, but it was like a money-making method. What was awesome about it was that it was so consistent. I knew that if I was woodcutting magics, I would probably make like, I don't know, 100K an hour. That isn't a lot of money now, but back then it was a lot of money. Whereas like PVM, well, I guess that's so much to go through, right? PVM was like high risk, high reward. You could go kill, the God Wars bosses, or you could go to the Dagonoths, or Calphite Queen is a perfect example, and you might walk away with no money at all. You will probably walk away in the negatives from all the food you had to eat. And of course, if you died, you lost all of your gear. Let's not forget that was part of it too. But if you did score big, if you got that dragon chain body, holy heck, you are rich. But it's pretty rare. So PVMing it was kind of like a high risk, high reward sort of deal. So skilling became that money-making method, but it was also easily bottable. So in old school RuneScape, prices of skilling items were just like going down in price. Nobody wanted to skill anymore because it wasn't very fun. And then PVM became a way to like make money way more consistently, right? I mean, who makes money off skilling these days? It's not a lot of ways to skill and make a ton of money. Not like there used to be, at least. So that was always a part of it as well. And that kind of disappeared. I don't know if we're ever going to see that change. Anyways, I talked way too long about skilling and what I think it means to the game. So I mean, one thing we lost was the social part of skilling. We lost the thing that like made the RuneScape world feel so full of life when you walked through this city or this town or this area and you saw a bunch of people woodcutting. That all slowly disappeared. And at least when it comes to woodcutting, forestry was an answer of how do we make forestry more social again? How do we bring more people out into the world of RuneScape, the world of Gielinor? Like before. So, did it do that? Let's find out. So, this week, Forestry, The Way of the Forester Part 1 was released. This was like a unique concept when it comes to what their goals were for a skilling update, right? I mentioned like normally we get like a new skilling boss or something, and there's been a few that we know are in the works. But this was different. How do we make skilling hubs pop back up outside of the woodcutting guild? Overall, honestly, I've been having a blast this week woodcutting. I'm level 99 woodcutting, but I have been on a woodcutting grind because I really want that beaver pet. I've been spending a lot of time just woodcutting during the day. And then, of course, Forestry comes out and I'm like, you know what? This is perfect. I'm going to continue woodcutting outside of the woodcutting guild for reasons that we're about to mention. And yeah, it has been actually a lot of fun in so many different ways. It has created these social hubs. It has created this dynamic with woodcutting where it can be more fun now if you want it to be with these new types of events. So the way they changed woodcutting was before this update, and the way it works in the woodcutting guild is when you chop a tree, every time you get a log, there's like some sort of percentage, there's some sort of chance that tree is going to get chopped over, and then you need to wait for it to respawn, right? So what this means is if you have like 10 people on one tree, that tree is going to get chopped over so much quicker than if you were just in a world on your own by yourself. So it was pushing people to find empty worlds so that you could click on a magic tree and then you could be there for a long time. But if you're on a really populated world and you saw like 20 people all chopping your tree, you're like, fuck, man, it's going to get chopped down like any minute now. And that's one thing I was doing. I was moving to worlds that were way more unpopulated. I was going to like the high total level required worlds because I knew there wasn't going to be a lot of people there, which is kind of sad. Like you miss out on like engaging and talking with people because you're prioritizing experience and money over just being around others. That's how it was before. But this new update was changing the way trees being chopped down worked. So instead of it having a chance every time somebody gets a log, now trees were just on a timer. So if you were chopping down an oak tree, as soon as you start chopping, the timer starts, and after 27 seconds, that tree falls down. And higher tier trees would have longer chop down times, right? So oaks being one of the lowest at 27 seconds. Something like magic trees, which is what I always cut, was now on a timer of just under 4 minutes. So that means if I click it, I know that tree will be up for the next 3 minutes and 54 seconds. And after that time's done, it's going to get chopped over, and then I can click on another tree. So that means like if I'm in a world with a bunch of other people, it doesn't matter if we're all cutting the same tree because that tree's on a timer no matter what. So that was one of the changes they made, which is really cool. But on top of that, they made it so that when you are chopping the same tree as somebody else, you will get an invisible wood cutting bonus for each person on that tree, right? So the woodcutting guild has this invisible bonus. You have a +7 to woodcutting. You can't see it. You just kind of have it and you just have to trust it's there. I don't know. I can't tell like what that +7 is doing, but I'm sure it's doing something. That's what's weird about these bonuses, isn't it? Outside of the woodcutting guild, if for every person on that tree, you get a +1 to woodcutting and it maxes out at 10. So if you have 10 or more people on a tree, you're getting a +10 to woodcutting. So it's actually a better boost than in the woodcutting guild if you can find a place with 10 people doing it. So it is kind of encouraging people to create these hubs in the world of RuneScape. You want at least 10 people to be on a tree. So now you're going to have these worlds that are going to be meant for woodcutting. And maybe if you can't find the hub, then you'll go to the woodcutting guild. But you know that if you could find a hub, it would be better than the woodcutting guild. So in a nutshell, that is the foundation of this update. But they've added some fun stuff that make it even better than what this like overhaul to what woodcutting is. And one of the funnest and a really cool part of this is that it's also free to play. Most of us, we're not really going to care too much, but I always get really happy when free to play players get some love because free to play is just a whole different world. It's a different game. Not just like, you're limited on what content you can do. Like some of your skills aren't available. A lot of items aren't available. A lot of monsters, blah, 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 blah. The culture of free-to-play players is whack, right? There's a YouTuber named Jimmy, and he had done a series where he would just make an alt account and kind of wander through free-to-play and interact with free-to-play players just to like see what kind of shenanigans would happen. And it was a pretty popular series. I don't know if it's still going on, but it was pretty funny. And if you're ever bored, go to free to play and just walk around. People they're doing some weird stuff. And when I say weird, I mean like they're having fun, but they're not skilling. They're not killing stuff. They'll be doing weird stuff. Like one time I was in free to play, maybe I was playing on a new account. I'm not too sure why I was on free to play, but I was walking from Varrock to Falador for whatever reason. And I saw like 3 or 4 players maybe, and they were all working together to lure the stray dog out of Varrock. And they were like in between Varrock and Barbarian Village. Like I've never seen the dog this far out of the city before. They were past Gertrude's house and they were like working together to get the dog to move, continue to move like west or wherever they were going. And I was like, how long have they been doing this? Like I have never seen anything like that on a Members World, right? And you see stuff like that all the time in free to play, just people doing some, kind of bizarre stuff, but it looks like they're having fun. They're bored and they're being creative on how to enjoy more out of the game, I guess. Sometimes when you're restricted on what you're able to do, you end up being much more like innovative and creative because you need to find things to do to, maybe find joy. And I think free to play is a perfect example of that. So go check it out. So yeah, Forestry update is what came to free to play as well. And yeah, so you love to see it. One of the highlights, one of my favorite parts of this new update are these events that they have added. So they've made it so that when a tree gets chopped down, there is a chance that one of these quote unquote random events will begin, right? And they're like the random events we know, right? You know how you can get the genie that pops up or the mysterious old man? They have a few unique ones to woodcutting now, and they only have a chance at spawning once a tree cuts down. And they're pretty cool. They have these unique rewards. They're basically think of wood cutting currency. Okay, when you do these events, you get these like this anema bark, and you get different tree leaves, and they're basically just currency that you can use to buy different rewards. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But these events are kind of cool. The first one is called Rising Roots. This is the most popular event, not because the event is much more fun than the others, but because it's like the best. It's the best way to get the wood cutting currency, the anema bark. So when this event triggers, you have these roots that will spawn around the tree that just fell. And when you click on the roots, you will receive this anema bark, this wood cutting currency. Pretty straightforward. But what makes it so good is that there is going to be one root that has this teal, this green, bluish color to it. The root's going to look a little bit different. And when you cut it, you'll receive way more bark than the other roots. And the roots will kind of shift around, and the special root that gives you the extra bark will change after a little bit. So you just click it. But it is so popular that there are CCs dedicated to finding when these events spawn, right? People are crazy. I've been woodcutting at the three magic trees at Sears Village, the place where the hub I used to spend my childhood woodcutting. And I've been doing it now just because it is nostalgic for me. It's kind of nice. It brings me back memories to be there. It's really cool. But it's funny. Just south of that area, there's an area with 4 magic trees. And just north of the 3 magic trees, you'll have like 4 or 5 yew trees. And then to the east of the 3 magic trees, you'll have more yew trees. So what I'm trying to say is like the 3 magic trees, you're in this hub with a bunch of other trees. And as soon as you get like the roots spawn, people just like hundreds of people have been rushing from the other trees to come get to the roots. So somebody calls it out and everybody goes. It's really funny. So that's the first event. The next event is these, they're calling it flowering trees. But what happens is you have these flowers that spawn. There'll be like 6 of these flowers. And if you click on one of the flowers, and one of the 6 flowers will have like a pollen. When you click it, you'll receive like this purplish item, and it's just flower pollen. And basically this is a match game. Match the 2 flowers. You need to now go click on a bunch of the other flowers to figure out which one will take the pollen. And then when you do find it, you run back and forth between the twos, just cross-pollinating the 2 flowers. And you get a bunch of points or a bunch of the currency every time you run back and forth. I'll call it bark. get a bunch of the bark when you walk back and forth. And then eventually the flowers change. It's like not the most fun, to be honest. It's not the greatest because it's just kind of annoying having to click through a bunch of the trees or a bunch of the flowers, and they do shift around. So it's like not the most fun. It just feels a bit clunky, but it's there. Apparently you also get seeds from this event as well. So maybe I haven't been doing it properly because I don't think I've ever gotten seeds. The next event is the struggling sapling. So you'll have this one little tree, this one little plant will appear next to the tree, and then you'll have these piles of like different types of compost that you have to combine to make to feed to the plant. I've heard people call it tree wordle, just I thought was kind of good. So you have these 4 little piles, I think it's 4, and you can collect 3 of them to make mulch that you give to the tree. The tree will take any mulch and it actually heals it. You can see it grow, but there is one combination that will reward you the most points. So what you kind of do is you like kind of picking between these 4 different compost piles, and it will say this ingredient works best as the first ingredient, or this one works best as the second, this one works best as the third. So you're trying these different combinations to figure out what is the order of the 3 ingredients I need to take to feed to the thing. It is kind of fun. If it is a little bit enjoyable. I like a bit of like problem solving, like you can figure out different methods on how you can figure out it as fast as possible. And what's really cool, and this goes back to the flowering event as well, is it's the same for everyone. So as soon as somebody figures it out, what 2 flowers work, or when they figure out what is the combination of the compost to make the mulch, it's the same for everyone. So they can call it out, and then everyone just like rushes and works together to like feed it as fast as possible. And the 4th event, it gets chirped a lot, but I love it. A leprechaun will spawn at random. It's like the farming leprechaun, and all he will do is he'll take all of your wood cutting supplies and bank it for you. That's it. So it is a quick bank randomly that appears. And for someone who wood cuts at magic trees, I actually love this because then I don't need to go bank. It's pretty perfect, but others don't like it. So there are your 4 events. They're awesome. They are really, really cool. And it's been such a breath of fresh air for wood cutting, right? You can ignore the events, right? There's nothing wrong with just ignoring them and continue wood cutting just if you want to AFK. I've been doing that because maybe I just can't take the time to do it. If you're wanting to kind of put in a little bit of extra effort, kind of like what Mod Aiza was talking about years ago, you'll get rewarded with not just the bark that you can exchange for items, and you'll also get rewarded with like these experience drops, right? You will get way more experience by doing these events, and it's really cool. So there are a few rewards that we are going to run through, all right? I mentioned these events give you currency. You can then use that currency to buy these rewards. You also have to exchange noted logs with them as well. So it's like the currency and noted logs to get it. I don't know. It's whatever. So you can get a log basket. This thing's kind of cool. This is like the fishing barrel for wood cutting. You basically get an extra inventory of space for like exclusively for logs. So again, somebody like me who spends a lot of time wood cutting magic trees, this log basket would be perfect because now I can AFK even longer before having to go to the bank to deposit. I have double the space for my magic logs. That's pretty sweet. Next is the log brace. The log brace doesn't really do anything on its own, but when you combine it with the log basket, you can wear it. Again, it's like the fishing barrel and the fishing sack, if you know what that item is. It creates this cosmetic, it's like it goes in the cape slot and it just frees up the space and it looks kind of cool. Right now, if you want to get the lumberjack outfit, you need to go do this event called Temple Trekking. It's pretty cool. The event's actually kind of fun. I do like doing it. And it's really easy to get the lumberjack outfit. That being said, listen, I got tons of accounts. And one of my accounts is a UAM skiller. And he does not do any PVMing. So that means I'm never going to get my lumberjack outfit unless I do it through Forestry now. So now I can actually get it, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of nice. They have a new cosmetic called the Forestry outfit. It does the same thing as the lumberjack outfit. If you don't know, you get like a boost to your woodcutting experience. It equals out to be 2.5% woodcutting XP, which isn't much. It's actually not. Most of these scaling outfits are not worth grinding for in the long run unless you're going for 200 mil, because the time it takes to get the outfit, the amount of experience you could have got during that time just isn't worth it. But if you're like me and you like to collect stuff and you like to have different outfits, it's kind of nice. This Forestry outfit is the same thing, but you kind of look like a gnome child. You look like a really tall gnome child, or like one of those creatures from Zelda. I forget what they call it. Like these little, it looks kind of silly. Not hating on it. It looks silly in a good way, I guess. Another item you can get is the clothes pouch. This is kind of cool. It's a bag you can make. It puts all of your lumberjack outfit in this clothes pouch, which means you can look, you don't have, here's the problem with these scaling outfits. I love grinding for them, but you go to the woodcutting guild and everyone's wearing lumberjack outfit. Just like if you go to a fishing hub, if they still exist somewhere, everyone's wearing the fishing scaling outfit and yada, yada, yada. So you kind of miss out on this like awesome fashionscape stuff, but the clothes pouch allows you to wear fashionscape again, really wear your coolest outfit because you still get the boost from your lumberjack outfit, but you don't have to wear it anymore, which is awesome. And the last reward you can get is the funky shaped log. This is something you can give to your beaver pet and you can recolor it a bunch of different ways. This is something that people weren't super into because the recolors for your beaver just look kind of silly, but they change colors depending on what log you give it. So for every tree that exists, it'll have some sort of, different looking color. Like you can make it look pretty cool. Like there's like these Arctic pines, I think they're called. It's a tree, these like in the snowy area. And if you give it a log, it turns your beaver white, which is really cool. Or you can give it magic logs and it turns green, right? So there you have it. That is Forestry in a nutshell. One thing we did brush over as well is how you actually get started. Go to Draenor Village or go to Sears Village and you will see a friendly forester sitting down by a player-made fire. A fire will be set and he'll be sitting there and he'll give you everything you need. You'll actually get a forestry kit that will hold all of your consumables, like your currency for wood cutting, this anema bark, or I mentioned there's like tree leaves. I don't think they have any purpose right yet, but that's for part 2. This is only part 1. And of course, you have leprechaun charms, you have your nature offering, forester's rations, and these kind of work with different events as well. They allow you to spawn like the forest, the leprechaun event. Overall, it's a lot of fun. Highly recommend trying it out. And I really hope that this is a change to woodcutting in the long run. Oh man, I'd be so sad that after a month from now, it becomes kind of like Shooting Stars where nobody is doing it anymore. It's just dead, right? It'd be so cool. Like I would love to have people around the world woodcutting like they did, like they used to. And I can say for like this week, it's hard to gauge because it is the first week. It has been popping off. It has been so busy and so much fun. And I've been really enjoying it. Now I mentioned, the update, but if you're new here, it is way out of character for an update to come out in this game that has no issues. That is 100% praise, 100% positive. It has no bugs, no controversial things have been added or changed, all blah, 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 blah. I can safely say Forestry is not an outlier here. It did have some of problems on its own. First things first, the bug. One of the first bugs that happened was, I don't know what happened, but the Grand Exchange pooped out. If you're one of the people that just can't steal your mom's credit card and you can't buy bonds to sell, or you can't, just give yourself membership with her card, and you're one of the players that actually has to buy membership with in-game gold, well, unfortunately, you got screwed that day. People were trying to buy bonds off the Grand Exchange, and the purchase and transaction would go through. They would lose the money, but never receive a bond. Brutal stuff. I don't know. I guess they fixed it because it kind of just stopped talking about it. But if you look at the dev blog, they say it's a still ongoing issue. And it's been like almost a week. It's been a half a week, I guess, which is not good. One of the other controversial things that happened was when I was talking about forestry, I kind of was mentioning how the woodcutting guild worked. And then I mentioned how the rest of the world was a little bit different. So currently, the Woodcutting Guild does not get forestry events. It does not have the forestry timer added to it. Basically, the Woodcutting Guild acts the way woodcutting did before forestry came out. But on the day of that forestry was released, it wasn't like this. Actually, a lot of people at the Woodcutting Guild, because, I mean, there's so many trees near it, right? There's so many trees at the Woodcutters Guild, which meant that so many trees could get cut down. And whenever a tree got cut down, there was a chance at spawning an event. So events were popping off like every minute. There was a new event. So many people were able to just grind out these events, get your anema infused bark, and be on your merry way. Well, after a few hours, Jagex decided to remove forestry from the Woodcutting Guild, and people were pissed. People were not happy about that because they felt like, holy shit, people are having fun, and Jagex wanted to remove that. Why? It didn't make sense to a lot of people. Now, I get why people were upset. I was at the Woodcutting Guild, right? I was at the Woodcutting Guild because you gotta min-max these events, And but I was like thinking the whole time, didn't they say that the Woodcutting Guild wasn't going to have any of the forestry elements to it? Wasn't the Woodcutting Guild going to just act like woodcutting was before forestry? I'm pretty sure they said that. I'm pretty sure I read that in dev blogs too. And then this thing came out. People were pissed. They took it to Reddit. They were saying, every JMod needs to get fired right now. They were all voting on it. It was getting like hundreds and hundreds of votes. The vote was passed. And then people were like, why aren't these JMods getting fired? I do not understand. They changed what I liked about woodcutting and now I don't like it. I joke. I mean, people were upset on Reddit, of course. I mean, which makes sense, right? If you're holed up at the Woodcutters Guild and then suddenly it's just like doesn't work and it doesn't really even make sense. And when you're participating in so many events, like that was kind of fun. It was kind of fun for everyone to be clustered in that one area. But I understand why they did it. Because the whole idea for forestry was to get people out into the world of Gielinor and woodcutting in those hubs that used to exist before old school RuneScape, before the Woodcutters Guild. They wanted people to be woodcutting those maple trees and sears, or the yew trees, or the sear, or the magic trees, or maybe being at Edgeville and woodcutting those yews. They wanted people to be spread out in their little hubs like they used to be. But the Woodcutting Guild is so good for woodcutting that like everyone would just choose that one. Like, why wouldn't you? It makes so much more sense to just choose the Woodcutters Guild. So I actually think it was a good idea. Maybe they could have left it at the Woodcutters Guild for like a couple days and then removed it once things started to die down a little. But at the same time, I wasn't too upset. I was like, yeah, whatever. I totally understand it. Because they want the Woodcutting Guild to still be the place to go to be more AFK, right? If you just want to chill and just woodcut like the days of old, you want to just be very AFK overall. You don't want to worry about the events. You don't want to worry about these timers on trees. It's still going to be the place to go. It's only if you want to have the chance at those events and all that other stuff that you want to go to the other hubs. And the third thing that was kind of controversial that people didn't realize was that some of the items that you could buy with the bark, some of the forestry items you could sell on the Grand Exchange, right? You could just sell these leprechaun charms that spawn the leprechaun event, or you could just sell. You couldn't sell the currency. You can't sell the anema infused bark, but you can sell the things you buy with the bark. And yeah, people thought like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, why would you do that? I'm not sure why people were really against that, to be honest, but maybe they felt like you had to work. I think why people were upset was what you could do is like to get the recolors on your beaver, it is kind of expensive. It's a little bit pricey to do that. And it's kind of a big grind if you want to get it yourself. But what you could do, because things are tradable, is you buy the items from the Grand Exchange, and then you can sell them back to the forestry shop and you get a bunch of bark, right? So you could actually buy your lumberjack outfit indirectly by buying the other items and then reselling it to the shop. The same thing happened with Prospector back in the day. If you remember when Motherlode Mining came out, Prospector is a skilling outfit for mining, and you need to get it with golden nuggets, which is like this mining this mining currency. Oh, I can't talk. You're starting to see a trend when it comes to these skilling updates. But you could buy packs of clay from the mining shop for golden nuggets. And there's a time where you could buy the packs of clay from the Grand Exchange and then sell them back to the mining shop. So people were essentially just buying prospectors because they're like, I don't want to mine. I fucking hate mining, but I want the prospector's outfit for one reason or another. And so they would just buy the clay off the thing, sell it for golden nuggets, and then buy the prospectors. So that's something that people aren't super thrilled about either. You know what? They're probably going to change it. I won't be surprised if they changed it because they changed it for mining. It just took a while. Anyways, guys, that is forestry. I hope I summed it up pretty well. Again, I think it's a great update. I've heard people say, like, do we really need this update? Like, because it wasn't woodcutting fine the way it was before. But I want this trend. I want skilling to get some love. You know, I feel like it's kind of like the bastard child of RuneScape, where it gets enough love that people are like, okay, whatever. Really, the love it gets is to like, it allows you to hit those milestones you need to hit for PVMing easier and more fun. It's like a Band-Aid fix. Like, skilling still kind of sucks overall for the most part, but it's also like such a huge part of the game. And I love skilling and I wish it was more fun. So I welcome these type of updates, and I hope we continue to see these things pour into other skills as well. I would love for that to happen. This is only stage 1. Stage 2 is coming out down the road in September. That's a huge gap. What? September? 3 months from now. Okay. And we're going to be seeing even more items being added because, you know, we talked about it. We talked about the rewards we got, but you might realize that some stuff are missing, right? There's no teas that were pitched. There are no campfires or bonfires just pitched. There was no two-handed axes. That's right. There's going to be two-handed axes you can unlock, and we're going to get even more events pour into forestry, right? We've got the 3 so far, or I guess technically 4 events. And we're going to see a bunch more that come out as well. One of the events might even bring out a new pet. So I'm pumped. Again, I thought this was an awesome update. I was having so much fun this week, and I love it. And I think overall it was pretty well received. The forestry worlds have been packed. They've got like 3 of them all maxed out. And it's really cool. And I'm curious to see what this does for the long-term health of woodcutting in general. And I hope this was so well received. We start seeing this amount of love getting like more love coming to skilling, right? Maybe mining gets a bit more love, and fishing and all the skills should have like skilling should be unique. It should be awesome, just like PVM is awesome, but it shouldn't be awesome like PVM the same way, right? It should be a different type of awesome. I don't want to have like all these skilling bosses that it's just like, oh, this is just like PVMing, but I can't die. Or maybe I can die, but I'm really excited to see the direction. It's okay if I get some things like that. I love Wintertide. I love Temperos. I love Guardians of the Rift. I love Volcano. Those are awesome. And actually, I would be kind of into a full-on skilling raid, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. If we get there, we'll never get there. Guys, I need to take a quick break. We're going to go head on over to the Grand Exchange, sell a bunch of our forestry stuff. We're going to be like 3 days late too. So people were making so much money on day one. Your friend Dill's here sold all of his stuff on day 3 and probably missed most of that money. I didn't realize you could sell your shit until a few days later. I had so much bark. I still made a few mil, but holy shit, the amount of money people were making on day 1 was insane. And I missed the boat again. I always miss it. I'm always so late on it. All right, we're taking a quick little break and heading on over to the Grand Exchange, guys. It is an early morning Grand Exchange segment recording. I usually do these separately. I do them after the initial podcast recording. I don't really know why. It just feels like too much sometimes. Anyways, here we are, and I am geared up to go on a road trip back to see family. And we're leaving in a couple hours, actually, so really wanted to get this episode out before we left. But hey, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Grand Exchange. And you know what? There's been some movement. Some of my investments have been making some movements on the Grand Exchange. So in preparation to Forestry, I've been trying to really up my merch game. It's kind of hard. Like, you need to just dump money, and it kind of sucks to have a bunch of money sitting in the Grand Exchange, and it's like that money's just like gone. But at the same time, if you can afford it, if you can put 10 mil and just kind of like put it to the side and not worry about it, you can kind of have it like consistently making you money. And it's just like, I don't know, if you do it right, it's easy. You're doing other things, and your money is making money for you. I just start shilling like Bitcoin and stuff. It's funny, all my real life investments have been doing awful. I invested into Hasbro, tanked. The Carlisle Group, because RuneScape, they owned RuneScape at one point. I don't think they still do, but I have no idea. I had sold it, but oh my god, those just went down. I put money into Bitcoin. That's just really far down. Oh my god. So maybe you shouldn't listen to me for this, but in preparation for Forestry, I bought a few items. I bought cups of hot water, and I bought just teacups of normal water. And I bought them months and months ago because I know the teas were coming out, and I thought, cups of hot water are kind of a bitch to make. You need to fill it up with water, then you need to heat it up over, a stovetop or something. Kind of a little bit of a pain to make. I think that's how you make it. I can't even remember. So I figured, I'll put some money into it. I bought the bunch for like 150 gold each, and they're selling at 500. It's not a bad turnaround at all. Yeah, and then the cups of water have also sold. I bought them for like 20 gold or something, and they sold at like, I don't know, 70 gold. So maybe not a whole lot of money there, but still, it's free money. So that's the thing I've been trying to do more. Like, I'm looking at Desert Treasure 2, and I'm trying to think, what kind of things are going to go up in price that people aren't really thinking about, right? Because if it's items that are more obvious, it's too late. Like, it's way too late. People have already snatched those up, and they're probably going to go down in price. Like the scythe, right? A lot of people think the scythe is going to be worth a lot of money when these Desert Treasure 2 bosses come out. So the scythe has gone from 350 mil to like 550 mil. It's too late to buy a scythe and try to flip it. Probably. It might not be. It's hard to tell, but I feel like it's too late. Like, if I were to get a scythe right now, what's it going for? Let's check. A scythe's going for 555 mil. I really feel like if I buy it, I guess it's a bit of a gamble, because if it's really, really, really good, people are going to start snatching it up on the day of release. But if not, it's going to crash. So I guess it's a bit of a gamble. Anyways, it's been going well. My Forestry investments went up. That's awesome. It's exciting. I'm trying to do that more because it is kind of fun. And when something like that works out, it feels good. Other times, though, I had the whole bird's nest debacle where I bought a bunch of bird's nests, and then an update happened and they all crashed in price. And then I sold all the bird's nests like 8 months later because I had like 20 mil wrapped up in bird's nests, and they weren't going up in price, and I needed the money. So I sold them, lost so much money. And then the next week they made an update to they removed bird's nests from like a bunch of different boss tables, and it went up in price. So you guys, that's the negative about it. Anyways, we're not here to just talk about RuneScape finances. We're here to talk about IRL finances. Guys, if you want to support the show, if you've been listening and you wanted to send some love my way via money, you can do that by going to patreon.com/thewildernesspodcast. So if you are our top tier supporter, you get a shout out every single episode. So thank you to the Kazi. By the way, Kazi's got a roulette event coming up in the clan this month. So keep an eye out. That sounds like it's going to be so much fun. So the Kazi, Splemo, Sir Morg, Chris T, Flourish, Flarch King, Astrocity, Da Sasquatch, and Bronze Yawn. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. I really, really do appreciate it. Astrocity, big shout out on the shadow pull during one of our events that you're going to hear about coming up after this segment. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. But of course, if some people don't like to use Patreon, I totally get it. Instead, you can use buymeacoffee.com/dills to do a one-time donation instead. So thank you to Turkish S for supporting the show. And last but not least, we have a Discord server. So another way you can show some love is by sending some boosts to the Discord server. It helps, it gives these unique perks. So if you want to join the Discord server, you can now type discord.gg/thewilderness, which it's got a lot of other pretty cool perks as well. So you can send boosts that way as well. They cost money, but some people have Discord Nitro, which is, it's like membership. It's like pay to play. It's like going into members worlds, but on Discord. And with that, you can send 2 boosts to any server you like. And a few people have sent it our way. So thank you so much to A Wild Gengar, Flourish, Hey Step Sis, aka No Step Bro, J Dog, Capri Sun Man, almost said Cap Prison Man, Capri Sun Man, PH Zerker, and Roland Wisdom. Thank you guys so much for the support. Let's wrap it up. I got a road trip to get ready for. Okay, we are back from the Grand Exchange, guys. June has been one hell of a month for a lot of different reasons, but here we are back. I really wanted to feature some skillers on this episode, but I'll be honest, I'm getting ready for a road trip. About a year ago, I moved, I used to live in Ontario in Canada, and then I moved out east to New Brunswick. And basically ditched all my family. So we are gearing up for a big road trip back to go visit our family for a few months, which means the podcast will be on the road. I'll try my best with it. I did it last year during Christmas time, which was it was doable. We got an episode or 2 out. That was cool. So anyways, because we've been so busy and we're going to be on transit soon, didn't have a chance to kind of plan out some guests to talk on it, but really looking forward to some of the other stuff that we will be talking about in the upcoming episodes. June was a bit weird. There was a big gap in episodes, as you probably know, which means we lost we missed a bunch of developments and a lot of cool things, like sailing. Guys, when we last talked about sailing, it was just a concept. So much has happened since then, and I am so excited to talk about sailing and what their vision for it is, because guys, I am so excited for that skill, and their vision for sailing is like way better than I thought it would be. Isn't that crazy? I was worried that they weren't going to meet my expectations, and at least like what I was envisioning. And they're like, you know what, Dills? You're a fucking idiot. You can't even think big. You think you're just excited for like canoes to be happening. You want, the canoeing cutscene that happens when you use the canoe transportation system. Like, Dills, that's what you're thinking of. We're thinking of old school RuneScape 2. This is like this newest expansion. It's like the Fallout New Vegas of the Fallout franchise. I'm so excited to talk about it. So really looking forward to that. And then, of course, there have been some develops with Desert Treasure 2. Spoiler alert, the prayers got scrapped. But we're going to talk about that too. That's coming out down the road as well. So we have that to cover. And just like so much more. Guys, they mentioned this week, Dead Man Mode Apocalypse. Holy shit. We will be talking about that next episode, 100%, but sailing will be coming up right after that as well. And then Desert Treasure 2, we will probably be talking about that once it actually comes here, because it is kind of a clusterfuck. It's always the rewards, right? The rewards are never... in hindsight, the rewards aren't always that fun to talk about because you talk about what the rewards are going to be and then they get scrapped and they change it. And then I'm like, oh my God, I don't even understand what stats they're talking about. None of this shit makes sense to me. Why do I suck so much at this game? Why can't I look at these prayers and be like, they're good or they're bad? I'm always like, yeah, they look awesome. And then the whole community is like, they are the worst thing that could ever happen to this game. And it's like, oh, I agree. That's why I have to stay off Reddit, because I make these posts and I think everyone's going to agree with me and I get downvoted to hell and I get shadow banned from the subreddit. I have to make a new account. So anyways, so lots to talk about and I am so excited to do it. And this leads into the section where I say, hey guys, this is where you can kind of be a part of the show as well. You can interact with the show a few different ways. We have a SpeakPipe link, which is going to be found in the show notes of this episode, the episode description. And I encourage you to call in to leave your messages. You can tell me what you think about forestry. That's what I want to know. What do you think about forestry? But of course, you can always call in and talk about anything you want to share as well. I love to hear from the listeners of the show. It's one of my favorite parts of the podcast. But not everyone likes to leave messages. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I interact with some of the hosts on the show. I am not one that likes to leave messages because it takes me like 20 minutes because I keep deleting it and re-recording it. I don't know why I'm like that. I just am. So you can also leave a message as well. You can go on through email, thewilderness.podcast@gmail.com. You can also just message me on Discord and I'll make a note and bring it up on the next episode. The next episode I remember to, at least. And this is another cool way you can interact with the show for you Spotify listeners. If you listen to the podcast on Spotify, there's like this Q&A thing that pops up and it says, what do you think of the show? You can interact with that. You can click it and leave a message and I can see it. That is really cool. I didn't really know that was a thing. I turned it on and then I forgot that it was on, and then I went to check and we got some messages, some about sailing, which we're going to talk about when we do talk about sailing as well. We got a few fun messages from when sailing was first brought up on the show. So that's another way you can talk as well. Of course, you can message me on Discord or leave a comment on our podcast channel on Discord. It's discord.gg/thewilderness, all one word. And there is an in-game clan, which is just wild, WILD. You can message me to join, or you can just join as a guest, and you can hang out as a guest, or you can join the clan officially. We do a lot of fun stuff. We just wrapped up an event for the clan. It was an wild item hunt, it was called, and people seem to really enjoy it, where you could grind out different items for bosses. These items were worth points, and then there was different bonuses that would be applied to these bosses to give the points even more value. And there was a shop you could spend your team's points on to get different buffs or different perks or whatever it was. People seem to really enjoy it, and we had a lot of fun running it as well. So if you want to get more involved in the game and like events and stuff, feel free to join. Come along. We'll have bingo coming up around the corner as well, which you are more than welcome to join. I think I hit everything. Did I hit everything? I think I hit everything. Of course, every episode we have to pick a song of the week. And Alligator, I'm so sorry I missed your song request last week, but I didn't forget this week. Alligator has requested the Song of the Elves. Guys, this song is friggin' awesome. This is a wicked, wicked song. So good. It came out for Song of the Elves in the Grand Library, but I remember when it first came out. When I do my quests, all sound and music is on to fully experience it. And I remember going into the Grand Library of the Song of the Elves quest line, and this song came on, and it was such a cool moment. Really, really cool moment. So this is just a terrific song. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about forestry, or you can call in about sailing, Dead Mode Apocalypse, all that fun stuff as well, because we will be talking about those in the episodes to come. Yep. Thank you for listening. I love you all, and I hope you have an amazing Canada's Day. I hope you have an amazing Canada's Day. You enjoy the long weekend. And if they're like, listen, I live in Sweden, I don't get to celebrate Canada's Day, you just tell your boss, you know what? I'm just taking one today. I'm just taking the day off for Canada's Day. Just trust me. We're going to have some peanut bacon, a little bit of poutine, maybe some maple syrup. What else is there? I think that's it. We don't really eat anything else. And enjoy it. Or if you're American, you can do your 4th of July. I think that's coming. You can do your 4th of July as well. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.